There was a time when Ellen DeGeneres was considered the queen of daytime television. Her infectious laugh, quirky dances, and endless celebrity guests made The Ellen DeGeneres Show a cultural phenomenon. Viewers adored her. She stood for kindness, literally. It was her motto, "Be kind to one another." But what if that message wasn't the whole story? What if, behind the camera, behind the perfectly lit stage, there was something darker hiding in plain sight? And worse, what if celebrities tried to warn us and we just didn't listen? This is the story of how the cracks in Ellen's carefully constructed image were there all along, hidden in uncomfortable interviews, quiet departures, and subtle warnings from people who had seen the real side of her. And while the world laughed, they tried to speak out, and we looked the other way. From awkward silences to on-air tension, from quiet social media shade to outright confrontation, celebrities were dropping clues. But the power of Ellen's brand was overwhelming. She was untouchable. For years, every warning went unnoticed, until one day, it all collapsed. In this video, we're going to unravel the timeline of those ignored red flags. The interviews, the backstage stories, the voices that spoke up and were dismissed. These are the 10 celebrities who tried to warn us, and the truth we refuse to see. Our story begins with Dakota Johnson. The year was 2019. Ellen invited Dakota onto her show, and what started as a friendly conversation quickly turned cold. Ellen joked that Dakota hadn't invited her to her birthday party. But Dakota didn't laugh. She corrected Ellen, awkwardly but firmly, saying, "Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen. You were invited." The audience chuckled nervously, but something was off. Ellen, visibly uncomfortable, shifted the blame. What seemed like a silly exchange actually revealed a crack in Ellen's on-screen persona. Someone used to controlling the narrative suddenly caught off guard. Then came Mariah Carey. Years earlier, during a 2008 interview, Ellen pressured Mariah to reveal whether she was pregnant, even after Mariah hesitated. To test her, Ellen handed her a glass of champagne and urged her to drink it. Mariah awkwardly pretended to sip. Just weeks later, she suffered a miscarriage. Years later, Mariah would say that moment was incredibly uncomfortable and not appropriate, and yet, at the time, we laughed. Katy Perry was another guest whose tone changed. She had been a frequent visitor on the show, but after a segment in which Ellen pretended to forget Katy was married, fans began to notice a shift. Katy's later interviews and public appearances subtly hinted at tension. Nothing direct, but it was clear she never went back. Even Michelle Obama, who once enjoyed a glowing relationship with Ellen, reportedly cut ties after behind-the-scenes incidents. Staff close to the former First Lady hinted that Michelle felt uncomfortable after a visit, describing the atmosphere as tense and not what it seemed on TV. And then there was Brad Garrett. The veteran comedian didn't mince words. When the workplace allegations about Ellen's show finally hit headlines in 2020, Brad tweeted directly, "Sorry, but it comes from the top. No more than one who were treated horribly by her. Common knowledge." It was one of the first public celebrity call-outs, and it confirmed what insiders had whispered for years. Leah Thompson, another respected actress, echoed Brad's sentiment. She replied to a tweet about Brad's comments, simply stating, "True story. No drama, no extra details, just confirmation." And these weren't isolated opinions. YouTuber Nikki Tutorials, real name Nikki DeJager, was invited to Ellen's show after coming out as transgender. But behind the scenes, she described the experience as cold and distant. She said she wasn't even allowed to use the regular bathroom. It was her first major American talk show appearance, and it left her feeling unimportant. Tony Okungbowa, the former in-house DJ on The Ellen Show, eventually spoke out too. While he was careful with his words, he admitted that he experienced and witnessed toxicity during his years on the set. It was a painful admission. He had been a part of Ellen's public success, smiling on camera every day. But even he couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Then came the most damning moment, a viral Twitter thread. It was March 2020, early in the pandemic. Comedian Kevin T. Porter tweeted sarcastically, "Right now, we all need a little kindness, so share your most insane stories about Ellen being mean. I'll start." The replies poured in, hundreds of people sharing their experiences. Former staffers, waiters, producers, fans who had met her, all telling stories of coldness, demands, silence, eye contact rules, and more. It was like a dam had broken. Suddenly, all the years of warning signs made sense. The uncomfortable celebrity interviews, the forced laughs, the controlling tone, the abrupt endings of relationships. Ellen had built a brand of kindness, but behind the scenes, people weren't treated with kindness at all. Warner Media launched an investigation into the show's workplace environment. Former employees accused top producers of harassment, racism, and bullying. Ellen herself claimed to be unaware, but the pattern was undeniable. If so many people were trying to say the same thing for so long, how could it all be a misunderstanding? Ellen addressed the controversy briefly on air. She apologized. But for many, it felt rehearsed, detached. The damage had been done. And the most haunting part? These celebrities, these guests, they had been dropping hints for years. But because Ellen's image was so polished, so loved, we didn't want to believe it. We wanted the happy dance, the jokes, the feel-good moments. We chose the version of Ellen that made us feel good, and ignored the version of Ellen that made others feel small. In May 2021, Ellen announced the end of her show. After 19 seasons, she was stepping down. The official reason? It's just not a challenge anymore. But the reality? The world had finally started listening to the people who tried to warn us. Maybe the most unsettling thing about this story isn't what happened behind the scenes. It's how long it was ignored, how many voices were silenced, how many warnings went unheard. The truth was never hidden. It was right there, in uncomfortable interviews, in quiet tweets, in sidelong glances. We just didn't want to see it. And when the truth finally came out, it wasn't shocking, it was sad. Because so many people had tried to tell us. And we didn't listen. If you found this story compelling, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next deep dive into the hidden truths of Hollywood. Leave a comment below. Which moment did you remember seeing but didn't realize was a warning sign? Let's talk about it. Until next time, stay curious and stay kind. For real.